The identity of the serpent. Gnostics often identified the serpent in the Garden of Eden with wisdom, suggesting that it was a divine being that sought to enlighten humanity by revealing the knowledge of good and evil. Irenaeus refutes this interpretation by pointing out that the biblical text presents the serpent as a deceiver and an adversary to God. He asserts that the Gnostic interpretation twists the biblical narrative to suit their own agenda, distorting the intended meaning of the text. The use of parables. Gnostics selectively used parables from the New Testament to support their beliefs about secret knowledge and the role of Jesus as a revealer of hidden wisdom. Irenaeus argues that the Gnostics took these parables out of context, ignoring their intended purpose in Jesus' teachings. He demonstrates that the parables were meant to convey the message of God's love, mercy, and the establishment of His kingdom, rather than promoting the Gnostic idea of secret knowledge for an elite few. The role of Jesus Christ. Gnostics frequently denied the true humanity of Jesus Christ, claiming that He was a divine being who only appeared to be human. They used various biblical passages to argue that Jesus' true identity was hidden and only revealed to the Gnostic initiates. Irenaeus counters this by providing a comprehensive analysis of the scriptural evidence for the Incarnation, including the accounts of Jesus' birth, death, and resurrection. He demonstrates that the biblical narrative consistently presents Jesus as both fully human and fully divine, emphasizing the importance of His dual nature in the plan of redemption. The resurrection of the dead. Gnostics often rejected the idea of the resurrection of the dead, viewing the material body as a prison for the soul. They used certain passages from the New Testament, such as 1 Corinthians 15, to argue that the resurrection was a purely spiritual event. Irenaeus refutes this interpretation by carefully examining the biblical text, highlighting the passages that affirm the physicality of the resurrection and the transformation of the material body. He emphasizes the importance of the apostolic tradition in understanding the biblical teaching on the resurrection, which affirms the redemption of both body and soul. Through these arguments and careful examination of the Scriptures, Irenaeus demonstrates that a correct understanding of the biblical text supports Orthodox Christian beliefs about God, creation, and redemption, while refuting the Gnostic misuse of the Scriptures. He underscores the importance of reading the Scriptures within the context of the apostolic tradition, as this provides the proper framework for interpretation. Against Heresies. Adversus Haereses is a seminal work of Christian theology written by Irenaeus, the Bishop of Lyons, in late 2nd century. The text is primarily focused on refuting Gnostic beliefs and defending the apostolic tradition of Christianity. This summary will provide a comprehensive overview of Irenaeus' key arguments and themes within Against Heresies. Book 1. Exposing Gnostic Beliefs. In Book 1, Irenaeus provides an in-depth description of various Gnostic sects and their beliefs, such as the Valentinians, Sethians, and Barbeloites. He presents their complex cosmologies, which often include a hierarchy of divine beings known as aeons, emanations of the ultimate unknowable God. These aeons, in their various roles, are involved in the creation and governance of the material world. Irenaeus critiques Gnostic beliefs on several grounds, including their reliance on secret knowledge, gnosis, for salvation, the devaluation of the material world, and the denial of the incarnation and resurrection of Jesus Christ. He argues that Gnosticism is a distortion of Christianity, and its adherents have twisted the Scriptures to fit their own doctrines. Book 2. Refuting Gnostic Arguments. In Book 2, Irenaeus systematically refutes the philosophical and scriptural arguments used by Gnostics to support their beliefs. He employs logic and reason to dismantle their claims and highlights inconsistencies within their teachings. Irenaeus emphasizes that Gnostic beliefs are not grounded in the apostolic tradition, and their reliance on secret teachings is antithetical to the public nature of the Christian faith. Irenaeus also emphasizes the importance of the unity of the Church, asserting that it is through this unity that the truth of Christianity is preserved and passed down through generations. Book 4. Interpreting Scripture. In Book 4, Irenaeus offers an extensive interpretation of the Scriptures, refuting the Gnostic misuse of biblical texts. He demonstrates that a correct understanding of the Scriptures supports Orthodox Christian beliefs about God, creation, and redemption. Irenaeus stresses the importance of reading the Scriptures within the context of the apostolic tradition, as it provides the proper framework for interpretation. Book 5. The Role of Christ and the End Times. In the final book, Irenaeus discusses the role of Jesus Christ in God's plan for creation and salvation. He asserts the necessity of Christ's incarnation, death, and resurrection for human redemption, rejecting the Gnostic view that the material world is inherently evil. Irenaeus also explores eschatological themes such as the resurrection of the dead, the final judgment, and the establishment of God's eternal kingdom. 1. The inaccessibility of God. Gnostics believed in an unknowable transcendent God, the monad, who was separate from the created world. Irenaeus argues that this view contradicts the biblical depiction of God, who has revealed himself to humanity through creation and his word. He asserts that if God were truly inaccessible, there would be no way to have any knowledge of him, and the idea of revelation would be pointless. The hierarchy of eons. Gnostics believed in a complex hierarchy of divine beings, aeons, that emanated from the monad, with each subsequent aeon being less divine than the one before. Irenaeus counters this by pointing out that the concept of eons contradicts the biblical teaching of the unity and simplicity of God. He also notes that the Gnostic system of eons is riddled with inconsistencies, as it arbitrarily assigns roles and relationships between the eons without any clear rationale. 3. The demiurge and the material world. Gnostics often believe that the material world was created by a lesser, ignorant god called the demiurge. They viewed the physical world as inherently evil and separate from the spiritual realm. Irenaeus argues that this belief contradicts the biblical narrative, where God is the creator of all things, and his creation is declared good. He also contends that the Gnostic view of the demiurge is a distortion of the Old Testament's portrayal of God as just and compassionate. 4. The role of Jesus Christ. Gnostics denied the true humanity of Jesus Christ, believing that he was an aeon who only appeared to be human. They rejected the incarnation and the resurrection, claiming that Christ's spiritual nature could not be tainted by the material world. Irenaeus refutes this by citing biblical passages that affirm the humanity and physicality of Jesus, such as the accounts of his birth, death, and resurrection. He argues that the incarnation is essential for human redemption, as it unites the divine and human natures, allowing humanity to participate in God's life. 5. Secret knowledge, gnosis. Gnostics believe that salvation came through secret knowledge, or gnosis, which was available only to an elite few. Irenaeus counters this claim by emphasizing that the Christian faith is based on public revelation, accessible to all through the apostolic tradition. He argues that the Gnostic reliance on secret teachings is a deviation from the authentic Christian message, which is meant to be shared with everyone. Through these arguments and others, Irenaeus demonstrates that Gnostic beliefs are not rooted in the apostolic tradition and cannot be reconciled with the biblical accounts. Instead, he upholds the Orthodox Christian faith, grounded in the teachings of the apostles and the unity of the Church. Book 3. Affirming Apostolic Authority. Book 3 is dedicated to establishing the authority of the apostolic tradition as the true foundation of Christian doctrine. Irenaeus argues that the teachings of the apostles, handed down through their successors, the bishops, represent the authentic interpretation of the Scriptures. He traces the lineage of various bishops back to the apostles, demonstrating the continuity of Orthodox Christian teaching. In Book 4 of Against Heresies, Irenaeus delves into the interpretation of the Scriptures to counter the Gnostic misuse of biblical texts. Here are some examples of how Irenaeus refutes Gnostic interpretations and supports Orthodox Christian beliefs. Gnostics interpreted the Genesis creation account in a dualistic manner, arguing that the material world was inherently evil and created by a lesser deity or the demiurge. Irenaeus counters this by demonstrating that the biblical text presents a unified account of creation, where God is the sole creator and his creation is declared to be good. Irenaeus emphasizes that it is essential to read the creation account within the context of the apostolic tradition, which upholds the goodness of creation and the role of the one true God.